The Chiefs remain undefeated. They never lose on the road in Las Vegas. DeAndre Hopkins looked pretty good. There's a new man in the team named Joshua Uche, who you need to know a thing or two about. And frankly, I didn't even come up with like a funny thing to intro this show. There's just a whole bleep load going on right now. The Chiefs played a pretty weird game that ended up kind of normal by the end. And there's too many moving parts. We should just probably start the show and talk about it.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
I did earlier have the idea for an open that would not have landed without Nate here. Nate Taylor is set to join in progress today, Joshua Brisco and Seth Keysor. But I saw producer extraordinaire Tucker D. Franklin tweeting earlier that this Twitter account that I'm sure is reputable, it has a blue check mark. Buzzing Pop says the Kelsey brothers have been named People's Sexiest Podcast Hosts of 2024. And as Tucker quote tweeted, only makes me work harder. That was actually the only joke that mattered. Although I did have the thought that if all three of us were together, I was going to break the news to Seth that we had traded him for Ryan Gosling and just in a Hail Mary play to try to... I think as long as it wasn't Hugh Jackman, you'd be okay with it.
You know, Ryan Gosling is right up there in terms of males that I would feel threatened by, and understandably so. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I mean, that's,
Hugh
I
Jackman, Ryan Gosling, Ryan Reynolds, Joshua Brisco.
Yeah.
Denzel,
that's
maybe.
The list. Well, the biggest threat, the biggest threat you are to me right now is my daughter still insists that you are the funniest guy she knows. And I'm going to be honest with you. You and I joke around a lot.
Yeah, we do.
But let me tell you something.
I'm a funny guy.
You're a funny guy. Oh man, that gets under my skin.
And that's the best one for me because I, outside of simply being myself and my general propensity to tone down the swearing and to maybe ham it up a little bit for kids.
Sure.
Outside of that, I was just out there being me.
Yeah, just you being you.
I was just putting up shots or just hanging, we're just having a good time. And it turns out, she's got great taste in hilarity.
Yeah, that's great. I honestly have nothing for that. It bothers me so much.
Yeah, and I don't. It's not my fault either, so it's a win-win for me. You get bothered, and I'm just a good friend.
I mean that. Yeah, I'm not. It's not going to stop me from blaming you. Like, who am I going to hold responsible?
If you want me to tone it down next time, I can be less funny. I can be less funny around your impressionable daughter, but
But that's just pity. That's worse.
Oh, that's true.
I'm just going to have to step up my game. You know what? You take it one day at a time. Every single day, you just got to show up. You got to be a little bit funnier. You got to maximize your timing. You got to maximize your vocabulary. And just every day, you just get just a little bit better to when the brightest lights are on, you can finally show up.
And that, if there's anything that consistently leads to your child thinking you're funny, it's trying really, really hard to be funny.
Yeah, kids love that, people. Let me just tell you, the best thing you can do with your kids is care desperately how much they like you. That's definitely a great way to get things done.
Two comments from the chat here just to get us into the spirit as we hop into several things that we can break down from the game.
Much.
First, C said it took Troy Aikman 62 more games than Mahomes to hit 30,000 passing yards. Thank you, C. That's a very good stat. And then I don't know, I'll just read another one randomly. I'll just pick one. The beard strengthens the jaw, Josh. Thank you, Steven. I guess I'm just going to pick a random one. I'm still trying to figure out where I settle in beard wise. I think there's a chance. Thank you for putting it on the screen too, Tucker. I do really appreciate that. So we will continue to work on being sexier podcast hosts in the next year so we can give those damn Kelsey brothers a run for their money next year. In the meantime, we may as well try to give them a run for their money by talking about the Chiefs, I guess. Damn, they really do have us beat at every angle. Let's start with the fun thing and the new thing, Seth, and something you've already written about. I guess it's not even the newest thing, but DeAndre Hopkins is a Kansas City Chief. He makes his debut. He does get the ball early. He could have gotten the ball more. His stat line was pretty good. His snap count numbers were a little higher than even I expected, kind of optimistically. And as you've already looked at on the Chief in the North newsletter, you can read it, mnchiefsfan.substack.com. I do not believe I'm overstating things when I say that his film was significantly better than those pretty good stat lines that he did put up.
Yes, Hopkins could have, in theory, had he been targeted every single time and targeted a little more accurately on one throw. Although to call it inaccurate is a little bit. Mahomes, so he had 3 targets, right? Caught 2 of them. One sailed over his head. That wasn't really an inaccurate throw, and it wasn't really that Hopkins ran a bad route. It's just, I guarantee you after that play or at some point during the rest of the game, Mahomes said, hey, you flattened it out a little earlier than I like. I like guys going a little bit deeper when they're trying to hit that whole shot against cover 2. And Hopkins said, cool, and next time he will. But that and then a couple other times that he got open, Hopkins could have easily had 6 or 7 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. And that doesn't mean Mahomes, so one of those, like the touchdown, Kelsey's touchdown, go back and rewatch that because Hopkins was being singled up. You had a safety who didn't know what to do because Kelsey was running to the same type spot that DeAndre Hopkins was, and he wasn't sure who to help. And Hopkins got wide open on a slant, demonstrating that route running, feet, and the ability to make good cuts and planned cuts. They're so much more important than pure athleticism in getting open. He was wide open. It was actually an easier throw to Hopkins than to Kelsey. It just so happened Kelsey was the first read. Mahomes saw a window and zipped it in. I wrote about it. You can check it out, like you said, on the Chief of the North newsletter to look at a bunch of different routes. There's a couple just really cool things to take away. I love the fact that his first snap was a high leverage moment, 3rd and long. And basically, it's like, hey, we're going to line you up in trips. We're going to put you in motion. And those guys are going to do stuff. And why don't you just see? He actually got essentially, and calling an option route is not quite accurate, but the guys next to him, Worthy's running up the seam to try to pull defenders. You've got another guy running up the sideline, or maybe Worthy's up the sideline, the other receiver's up the screen. You'd think I'd be able to differentiate Worthy because, he weighs 110 pounds. But
it's only like that translates to like 4 pixels though. So
so you've got those 2 guys are running designated routes, and then you see how the defense moves because Kelsey's coming across the middle of the field, and Hopkins, you can just see him feel it. It's the same thing you see with Kelsey. It's the same thing you see with Juju Smith-Schuster. These are important things. The difference between Hopkins and Juju, though, and this is what we were talking about last week before the game. People can talk about them winning the same way versus zone. You can see, and sometimes we overcomplicate things in this sport. You can see the difference in how Juju Smith-Schuster moves and how DeAndre Hopkins moves. Okay. It doesn't mean that Juju's completely washed or that Hopkins is this sensational athlete, but you can see the difference in their twitch. Hopkins isn't a twitchy guy, but Juju, he's more twitchy than Juju. You can see the difference there. You could see him separating from man coverage. I love that his other catch was another kind of high leverage time. You're big gain, trying to get the first down. You're in man coverage. Hey, go win. Go win. I'm against man coverage. They're trying to press you. Swat his hands away. Run a beautiful out. Beautifully timed sideline ball. Big gain. That was so fun to watch, but there were multiple other plays. Again, he was wide open on Kelsey's touchdown, which again, Kelsey was open, so you make the throw. That's how that works. People always say, well, you should have thrown to that one. It's an easier throw. That's not how reads work. If your first read's open, you throw to that guy. But there were a couple other opportunities. Just on a side note, if you read the article, when Hopkins and Mahomes weren't quite on the same page, you know how Hopkins knew the right spot to run to? Because Travis Kelce was pointing to him, which it's so funny when he does that. He sees the safety break or the corner break towards him. He just points. He's like, Pat, throw to that guy. Pat's like, thanks, dude. Already thrown
really
it.
Helpful for me to look at you to point over to the spot I was supposed to throw the ball and then see that and then throw the ball. That's how I was doing it.
Thank you so much. The biggest miss of the day, and I hesitate to call it a miss, but if you want to see what Hopkins can really bring to the table, the ability to win one-on-one against man coverage, again, he's not elite at it. Don't expect him to be constantly open like Justin Jefferson to where you can never play man on him. But I'll tell you what, the Raiders couldn't play man on him because they couldn't cover him. The dropped, defended, whatever you want to call it, throw to Xavier Worthy, which Mahomes, he could have gotten that out a split second earlier, His arm got hit was the big thing. If his arm doesn't get hit, he puts that on a rope, and we're all talking about the terrific route that Worthy ran. It's a great route. Xavier Worthy can't do contested catch stuff. He can't. He's too small, too weak. Maybe next year. He's 21. Dude still needs to put on, maybe needs to work with Bobby, figure out how to put on 10 pounds of functional strength. Fair enough. He did some good things too, so this isn't really about him, but it is what it is. On the backside of that play, though, I think what you might see in the future is that the first read might be Hopkins against man instead of Xavier Worthy, because Worthy, again, ran a terrific route, opened up the way that he was supposed to. It was really nice. If it had been gotten there a half second sooner, it'd be a completely different conversation. But Hopkins, on the other side of the field, absolutely destroyed. Was that Jack? I think it is. The guy that...
Zero, I can't remember his
I think it says on his uniform, none of us are scared of that guy. So I'm pretty sure that's Jack. Hopkins... I know we talked last week about one of my favorite routes that he ran was when he utilized essentially a club to club the defender, the corner that's in man coverage, towards one direction, and then fake that he's running the other way. And so then the club defender will assume, oh, hey, he's clubbing me left. That must mean he's going right. But actually, he's clubbing you left, and he's actually going left. He's just faking going right, and he ends up all by himself in the middle of the field. It's a terrific route. It's run so well, and you can see him. You could actually see Hopkins a couple times. His whole career, like Travis Kelce, he's been a very demonstrative guy when he's open and doesn't get the ball. You see him try not to do that. You see him like, no, it's cool. It's cool. I'm happy to be here. Just happy to be here, guys.
Yep.
But the film was better than I'd hoped.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see how he gets kind of brought into the entire offense. It's going to take weeks and weeks, and it's going to probably be a partner at a firm I used to work at. She used to always, talking about getting things done, she'd always be like, steady by jerks. And it makes no sense, but that's what it's going to be like. It's going to be steady by jerks.
I'm not going to make any other jokes about that and say that it looks like Jacorian Bennett is 0 for the Raiders, so he might have been the guy that got cooked by Hopkins on that route. He is an outside corner or second-year corner there. A couple of the some vibes things, one that Mahomes mentioned and the one that in a way that you've alluded to, and then also the small one is that on the touchdown to Kelce, that could have just as easily been a touchdown to Hopkins as you mentioned.
Yep.
Hopkins after the play goes after the touchdown, gets behind Travis Kelce and starts pounding his chest, not his own chest, Travis Kelce's chest. There's a photo in the image library we have for ChiefsOnSI.com.
Nice.
And it says Travis Kelce and DeAndre Hopkins celebrating whatever, but it just looks like that game in Whose Line Is It Anyway, where there's an extra set of arms out in front. Like there's a set of arms coming through Travis. He looks like General Grievous at that point. Like there's just 4 arms there, which sometimes is how it feels like he plays. He does just seem excited to be playing, as he said in his own words in his introductory press conference, meaningful football again, which he hasn't done for a while. The other thing, and you'll, I think, understand what Mahomes was referring to specifically here. The phrase is a little bit funny, but he said that Hopkins has, I don't remember what the adjective was, but that he has like really interesting and expressive body language as a route runner. And what he expanded on a little bit to say like that it shows you what he's about to do next, which I think if you were saying that from the defensive side would be damning. From the quarterback side, whatever Mahomes is seeing there that is understanding how Hopkins is setting up what he's doing and how he's going to end up getting to his spot. That's after 2 practices in 3 days, right? Like, or 2 practices, 4 days, maybe. The fact that progress already seems to be there, I don't think in any of the film review there, I don't think you ever had a gun shy Mahomes moment, as you said, like the Hopkins is open, but not targeted reps, where because of the way the play went and whoever came open first and all of that, I am very, very encouraged by everything we saw from Hopkins. I'm encouraged by how quickly they got him involved on a pretty good level. And I would be happy to see them not force feed him, because I think that's against Andy Reid's DNA, is to like explicitly try to get a football to somebody, even if the matchup or the play doesn't lead you there. But I would be more than happy for them to have a whole set of packages where he is the primary option this week.
Absolutely. And that's going to be a key in terms of kind of trying to move forward. So what does that look like? I think he'll be a little bit matchup dependent with his ability to beat man coverage, but it looks like something that could be pretty consistent. And he looks much more comfortable with it than anyone else they have on the roster. Maybe Rashee Rice was going to be there. I mean, he looked terrific his first few weeks. That's why it was so devastating when he was injured. And honestly, Hopkins is a guy that I hope Rice has a chance to be around. Usually, we know when you're rehabbing, you're not around teammates as much. But learning how to separate from a guy like Hopkins would be gold for a guy like Rashee Rice. He really can separate from man. He handles that physicality so well. And that's just, he's stronger than people realize. Because he's kind of lean looking, because he's a taller guy. People don't really realize that he's 210 pounds plus, probably about 215, and he's just stronger than a lot of the guys he's facing. I'm excited to see the Mad do it. Like you said, my hope is some of the packages they've got moving forward, they give some of the reps that they're currently giving to Worthy, that they previously were giving to Juju, that they were previously giving to Rice, that they initially planned on giving to Hollywood. Did I get that right?
I think so.
They've had a lot of injuries.
Sure have.
I want to see those go to Hopkins because... And just a complete side note, lots of people kind of asking about Worthy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to do the same, man.
Worthy, to me, he needs to... Contested catch stuff isn't his thing. You want him to run some whip routes. You want him to run some crossers. He can. He absolutely can. And downfield stuff. I think the plan for him should be MVS plus the rest of the year. As long as D-Hop is around and as long as, when Juju comes back. And MVS plus, by the way, could be an incredibly important role in this offense, especially if Hopkins plays well. Because
can you elaborate what you mean there a little bit? Because you've written about it some, but just MVS is a 4-letter, 3-letter word.
Absolutely. A legitimate downfield threat that opens things up for everyone underneath. Target amount varies by game, but you are running, 10 to 15 goes, posts, downfield routes, maybe even more. You run in a bunch of deep crossers, that kind of stuff, stretching the field. They do need to, I still want them to dial up the number of deep shots they're taking to him. That's frustrating for me. Didn't take a single one against the Raiders. We'll see if I see anything on film in terms of him opening up down the field. But in every game, he's gotten open downfield. They need to be doing more of that. When I say MVS plus, I mean that type of thing, that legitimate downfield threat. And the plus part there is he's already way better at crossers than MVS ever was. He's already better on these whip routes, these quick screens, that sort of thing, because he can gain you 6 free, easy yards. He also adjusts to the ball better than MVS ever did. He's a better player now than MVS was in 2022. You give him that same role, plus a few of those shorter targets, a few of those crossers, and you're cooking with gas, and you're not asking a guy to do more than what he's capable of. And so it's kind of the ideal of MVS, not necessarily what MVS was. And think, again, 2022 MVS. So if you do that, then you let Hopkins be 2022 Juju plus. You're running a bunch of the intermediate and shallow stuff, but he is also a man coverage guy. In 2022, they relied on Juju for that to an extent, and he was just barely good enough at it to get by, mostly with contested catches, back shoulder stuff. Hopkins can do that, but he can separate too. Short story, I think they've got a legitimate chance to formulate the offense similarly to how they did in 2022, but better, because Worthy's better than MVS, and Hopkins is better than Juju.
And look, being able to attack the middle of the field, that's so important. And if you want to be at the middle of the field, you pesky little Chiefs fans, you've heard me say it before. I get to say it a few more times. It's an incredibly cool opportunity that we are able to offer to you through our friends at GEHA. You could be on the field at the 50. Please don't attack the middle of the field. Don't tell them I said attack the middle of the field. It was just a segue, and clearly it was incredibly labored. You can be on the field at the 50 inside GEHA Field for the official coin toss at a Chiefs home game this season. Visit Chiefs.com/GEHA right now, and you can enter to win a chance to be on the field for the march to the three-peat. Plus, you can score other exclusive prizes. Enter for a chance to win at Chiefs.com/GEHA. GEHA is the proud partner of the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, Nate Taylor will join us. We'll get the whole band back together, talk a little bit more about Hopkins from Nate's perspective, and take a look at a whole lot of other things going on. Joshua Uche, I mean, it's a podcast. I don't really need to tease it. You'll probably still be here.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. And turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/KCSNOWG. There you'll see that right now, all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. To get this new customer offer in your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/KCSNOWG. That's mintmobile.com/KCSNOWG. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/KCSNOWG. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
Look at that. That's Nate Taylor here as we're all good to go on this front. Nate, we've talked about just an absolute ton of DeAndre Hopkins stuff, and we've pretty much touched on nothing else. So I'm going to bring you in at full speed like they did with DeAndre Hopkins. Anything that you saw from the press box view, from looking back at the film, from chatting around after the game, what was your takeaway of the DeAndre Hopkins debut experience?
Well, Josh, I'm sure you guys have said it in so many words, but if he stays healthy, big if, the only if, as of right now, through a handful of snaps, he's good. We knew he was good, but he's perfect for this offense, for this moment, for the rest of this season. And I respect the fact that DeAndre Hopkins appreciated the new attention. If you saw his social media accounts, he loved the new attention, but played it very calm, very cool after the game. Well, why do you guys want to talk to me? I'm just doing what the coaches asked me to do. I have a lot of respect for Patrick Mahomes. Well, if Xavier Worthy thinks I'm an unk, I'm just trying to keep up with the youngin, just a smorgasbord of quotes that I cannot put in theathletic.com because they're pretty basic. Not for journalistic reasons. Come on, Josh, you know this.
I just didn't say anything. I just made a face.
Journalistic standards.
Not interesting enough. Not a very good quote. He's just out there being humble.
He was very humble, but he fits the offense really well. There's no doubt about it. The fact that he was running routes that well with 2 practices and being on time. I mean, he was available for Patrick for probably about, I don't know if one of you guys have said it earlier, but he was probably open for about 6 to 7 receptions. It's just he only had 2.
Yeah. But
his 2 were pretty important in the first half, but he could have had more. He was open quite a bit. And yeah, he makes perfect sense for what they're asking of them, or what they're asking of him, I should say. And the first, I don't even know if it's the first, but this is like the third. This is the third all-in move that has already worked. And that's hard to do when you're trying to compete for a championship. And oh, by the way, you're trying to chase a third straight one. So, which has obviously never been done in the NFL. So they signed Juju Smith-Schuster right after cutdown day, or essentially at cutdown day. They obviously acquired Kareem Hunt off the couch. And now DeAndre Hopkins is really, really viable. And he should only get better. So he was very humble. And you know, I think he will have quite an experience in Arrowhead Stadium on Monday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I will note, since as you mentioned the veteran additions the Chiefs have made, maybe breaking the age ceiling they typically put. This was one of the youngest rosters in football, especially weighted by snaps taken.
Yes.
I don't know where exactly they fit, but one of the youngest rosters in football, even with 96-year-old Travis Kelce, raising the average a little.
Are you saying that a team woke up today and realized their season's been over? Is that what you're saying?
That is interesting to me.
Is that what you're saying?
We need to make some. You know what? Let's actually real quick, because I know Seth has thoughts. I have thoughts. We all have thoughts. The receiver move the Chiefs didn't. My point on the age thing is that a young roster got a teeny bit older in some patchwork moves to make sure this roster can still win a Super Bowl. That's the way to do it. Do not build your entire roster out of 30-year-olds, but you get a couple to come in on some mercenary deals. Hell yeah. Deontay Johnson got traded today. He got traded from the Carolina Panthers to the Baltimore Ravens for a 5th, 6th pick swap, which means, assuming that the Panthers and Ravens stay on basically their current track, the Panthers, and there's some compensatory picks in there, the Panthers might move up 5 to 10 spots in exchange for Deontay Johnson. Nate, I don't know if Seth, would have, right? You would have. We talked about Deontay Johnson in a much higher price.
I would have now. I would have been like, hey, so hang on.
I would call the Ravens and offer them a 4th right now.
Yeah, I'd call the Ravens and be like, well, since you got him for a pack of gum, I guess. Like that is some of the lowest compensation that I've ever heard of in a trade. Like the only thing that's worse is when it's like a conditional 7th round pick, like a dude that's traded on cut down day,
Peyton Hendershot.
Yeah. And that's like, wow.
Deontay Johnson's not Peyton bleeping Hendershot.
And so I wish the Chiefs had been in on that. Even now, yes, even with Hopkins, who's a perfect fit for the offense, because you know what's better than, Travis Kelce, DeAndre Hopkins, and Xavier Worthy and Juju Smith-Schuster. It's Travis Kelce, DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy, and Deontay Johnson, and then Juju Smith-Schuster. And it's like, but Seth, you didn't name any other receivers. Nope. Didn't have to, because you had more. But fair enough.
Go ahead.
The entire league passed on it. My assumption is that Deontay Johnson, who has failed the Mike Tomlin test, right? He was traded by Mike Tomlin for for several packs of gum. It was like a family pack of gum. Right. And now the team that did that, who made it known, it's so funny
for weeks.
When you see things.
I mean, it's been known for a month that he was going to get traded.
What I love is like an hour before the trade was finalized, like, multiple teams are in on this. The Panthers were screaming, someone give us a decent offer. And for one reason or another, no one was interested. Even afterwards, I know Diana Rossini, thank you. Good Lord.
If you would have said Diana really
right, everybody knows who Diana is. Yeah.
And she's great. So I feel like a jerk, but whatever. I'm terrible with names. You can ask what's his name and who's it's who are on this podcast with me.
Go ahead, Steph.
Hey, that's too close. That's mean. Anyway, so the afterward tweet, well, there were multiple teams in it, but the Ravens pulled it out. It's like, what were the other teams offering?
What? The other temes were offering a favor. I had a few years. We'll give you an interview recommendation.
I'll owe you one. Ask around about me. What were they going to? Ask around about me. I'm a man who knows how to return a favor. I cannot give you anything right now, but let's just ask the people in my neighborhood.
Seth, that's a great Action Bronson.
Shop
impression.
Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
I don't know if we had a second ad today or Tucker just needed to escape the bit. I don't know if you heard. I'm just saying that was more Action Bronson than whatever else you were doing there. Still a good.
Oh, you know what I was doing there. It's just poorly. But anyway.
Nate, Nate,
please.
my question here for you, I guess, to the best of your knowledge, is
Okay.
Is that a deal? Is that a price the Chiefs declined a week ago? Is that a price the Chiefs declined today? Because that connection made sense. There were reports they were interested in Johnson last year, which also makes me at least he's not in the George Pickens territory of we all know why your value is lower than it should be. Like I haven't heard anything specific about Johnson. Maybe you have, but were the Chiefs never in on Deontay Johnson? Because that price is close to nothing as you can give.
Look, guys, I can only do so much given the constraints of this job. Now, I also know that Scoop City, a podcast you should listen to with Diana, with Chase.
Diana who?
Chase.
Diana
Rossini.
Chase.
Chase Daniels, yes.
Oh,
yeah, but yes, former NFL quarterback. You should listen to him. They're gonna have, I think, plenty of details. I don't want to like jump the line or skip the line, whatever the phrase is. But look, from the Chiefs' perspective, I said last week, guys, and this has remained true. Congratulations to the Tennessee Titans, who realized, based on the market and their positioning, that their season was over. And you have to make this point too, DeAndre Hopkins was ready to skip town. So for those parties involved, that was the ultimate decision you made. Now, the Chiefs did their due diligence. I would have traded for DeAndre Hopkins on Tuesday. They waited all day Tuesday and even Wednesday morning to, make the trade, agree to in principle. And then obviously they went through the negotiation on what the terms of the conditional pick was going to be. The Carolina Panthers didn't want to trade Deontay Johnson last week. Didn't. No. Why?
But we knew for a month.
Yeah. But the trade deadline's in November. So why don't we squeeze and hold on?
But did the Chiefs know that he was going to get traded today? Did Carolina call him back today?
No. Once the DeAndre Hopkins move was made, that's the move. And of course, they created more cap space with the writing of a check. Shout out to Clark Hunt, wrote a check to, Jawan Taylor, so that you could still be a player in the trade market at other positions. Right now, you could potentially get another receiver, but like I know someone asked in the chat earlier, when is D-Rob arriving? And I would say November 6th. But again, that depends on like how the Rams do, right?
Right.
But obviously, the Rams and Chiefs have talked to some degree. Now, I think largely that Cooper Kupp stuff was absolute asinine bullshit. we need some leverage. And so Cooper Kupp's like, no. And they're like, all right, fine. I mean, hey, we tried. We Cooper Kupp. All right, let's trade for DeAndre Hopkins. So, in summation, the Panthers didn't want to trade him last week. Darius Slayton not traded. Their season. I mean, is it over? Is it over now? It's over. It's over, guys. It's over. Is he coming back next year? I doubt it. But hey, you technically have until the 5th to make a decision. And then all of a sudden today, when Deontay Johnson is not going to practice because he's ready to be traded, guess what, kids? That market that you thought was going to be something isn't the same as you anticipated. You can't wait till the 5th. The player wants out. The team needs to get something from an asset. He was going to be traded. So cooler heads prevailed. And yes, there was a little bit of a back and forth. But, hey, man. He gone. So take this 6, baby. Take it.
And they ate some of his salary.
Right, which is the same, which I think was a hurdle for Carolina at the time, because they're like, why do we want to do that?
This
when we can't
because in a week
get a premium pick, or we can't get a day 2 pick, I should say.
Right. And this is where I could be wrong here, but this is where theoretical business models and theoretical business ideas fail in the field, because who conducts business? People. And that is why, because it's like, well, no, why would we do that when we can do it next week? Because your person, wide receiver, might flip out this week and start going public, and now you've got even less leverage, and you've got to trade him now. Well, we'll just call them now. We'll have more leverage. Well, no, because now multiple teams have actually traded for a guy already, and they're not planning on trading anyone else, and they're kind of pissed at you for being unreasonable last week, and they don't really want to talk to you. Well, they shouldn't do that. That's unreasonable. Okay, well, here, I'll call them and let them know that they're being very unreasonable. I bet that'll help us next time. I just to me, this is the same team. Different, I think, certain moving parts are different. This is the same team that turned down 2 firsts for Brian Burns to trade him for
Hey, don't say that. Don't say that outside. Hey, that was a different administration. What was it? Was it a different?
Not the important part. It sure wasn't. I don't know who the GM was. Nope. I know who the owner was.
Don't say that out loud.
And this. I mean, it's just so funny to me. I am surprised at the relative lack of interest from NFL teams. Johnson's good on film. I mean, he doesn't block, but I mean, he gets open. He catches the ball. Pretty good after the catch. So I am curious what's behind the scenes. I would love to see them get another receiver still, just because of the numbers game. If someone there's
not going to be a better player at a better value than Deontay Johnson went for today.
No,
that's
Well,
so I would should we let that go, Nate? Like, there's just nobody.
Look, this has nothing. This next part has nothing to do with Kansas City. Okay, let me do a Jedi mind trick. Nothing I'm about to say is about the Kansas City Chiefs. Now,
nothing you're about to say is about the Kansas City Chiefs.
I hate that we thought.
Where has Deontay Johnson played football in the NFL? Can you name the locations, Josh?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, whatever. Are they in Charlotte?
Charlotte, and
Pittsburgh,
Baltimore. Second,
who are we talking about?
Deontay. We're talking about Deontay.
He played in Baltimore.
Now
he's in Baltimore.
He's going to
now.
Is there?
Is that what we're
misunderstood? Hey, you
mind
wiped me so hard there that I don't know what your question even was. I said Pittsburgh and Charlotte, and you were like, no, Baltimore. I was like, oh, okay. Is that wrong?
No.
I thought for sure he was in Pittsburgh.
I'm just saying, what does the trend tell you, Josh? Where are those teams located? Are they down
on the
I-95?
eastern half of America?
Yeah. And
He refused to play in the Midwest or West Coast? Is that what we're learning here?
And secondly, which has
the Eastern time zone, Tucker asks.
Nothing to do with the Kansas City Chiefs. Absolutely nothing. Can he get more targets? Theoretically, in Baltimore.
I don't know. Lamar runs a lot. They have Derrick Henry, and they throw to 3 tight ends, so probably not. I would say no. I would say the Chiefs wide receiver group, especially a week ago, was in a way worse place than Baltimore's.
Well, he has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the Kansas City Chiefs. Sorry,
that
I
has
forgot
to do
that
with Carolina. Okay, nothing to do with Carolina. He's already made a move.
So what you're saying is in the early 90s, he would have sided with Biggie over Pac, is what you're telling me. The man loves him.
There's
the East Coast.
There's a track record that we cannot dispute, and we need to recognize said track record.
Can I, and I'm actually not going to ask. We had the very greatest comment that we've ever had in the history of this podcast. Oh man, am I about to get got here with a name? Hold on. What ways could this name go wrong for me?
Spit it out, man. I haven't seen it. Just get it over with.
Lance McCormick. I don't know how that could be terrible. Stop. It says Jazz is a lucky woman, and I just really wanted everyone to know that was a comment.
You think Jazz gets really turnt for a good Deontay Johnson trade breakdown?
I don't know.
Like making all those babies.
I'm not willing to rule out any possibilities, Josh. There's the drawing board.
Seth keeps talking about the old 22, and she's like, "Children, sure, yeah, fine,
yeah. Let's put a baby in me."
That's the worst sentence. Yeah, that sucks.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
So the Kansas City Chiefs have acquired former New England Patriots pass rusher Joshua Uche. Now, he himself did request to be called Joshua and noted that it's pronounced Uche. Seth's in timeout. So before we get to the film review, while Seth goes and finds Christ, then Nate, you can tell us, how do the Chiefs end up making another move before the deadline, giving up a draft pick, a 2026 sixth rounder, to bring in an edge rusher of all things?
Yeah, so this is twofold. This is because of injuries to that position. Most notably, Charles Omenihu was still weeks away. Mike Dana has not played 3 of the last 4 games with a calf and a pectoral injury. You need as many pass rushers as possible for January. So that's sort of the thought on one end. And, Uche appears to be a pretty good pass rusher when given the opportunity. I know Bill Belichick said he hadn't had much opportunity to rush the passer, which can change next to George Karlaftis and Chris Jones. And, if you want to move, Omenihu inside on 3rd down, sure. Or, hey, Tershon Wharton continuing to have a great season. So, hey, maybe he gets more one-on-one opportunities. Maybe it limits the need for Spags to blitz, although poor Gardner Minshew in the second half of the game, he was just like, again, dude. So with that, the second point is, this is it, kids. This is a team trusting its scouting department, its advanced scouts in the league, to sort of scour the market to understand like who might be available, who's still, again, young, athletic, in the prime of their career. Obviously, Uche is not 30. So I got one thing right. It's not my fault teams didn't want to trade younger people a week earlier. It's not my fault. It's not on me, okay? It's not on Blake, and it's not on me, okay? Why I sound like Doc Rivers? It's not all on Blake. So hopefully you got the reference. With all that being said, God, he's the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. What time is it? Anyway, hey, the Juju pick work? The Juju pickup work? We got 4 quality games out of Kareem Hunt. DeAndre Hopkins is good. Bleep it. Do another one. Put the chips even more in. Well, we don't really have draft picks for the rest of this year. F it. Throw next year's pick into it. Oh, okay. Why? We need more pass rushers in January. So I don't know what this necessarily says about Mike Dana's injury or the fact that he might be going on IR. Who's to say? We'll find out more later this week. But hey, what we learned today, actually a third thing. What we learned today is Felix Anudike-Uzomah is very good on 1st and 2nd down. He's actually getting better. Holy smokes. On 1st and 2nd down. But they need somebody on 3rd down.
Which is ironic because that was the exact inverse of Felix's scouting report, right? It was like, listen, it's going to be a couple of years before you can put him out there on 1st and 2nd down, but 3rd down.
They are slowly building Felix into a professional defensive end.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that 4-year project.
It's not your turn yet.
To come to fruition.
You haven't served your time yet. Nate and I weren't done. You can go next. You mentioned what Belichick said, Nate, and I thought of those traits, one of the interesting things, as he kind of got into a little bit of scouting report. Obviously, Bill Belichick drafted this man and coached him on the defensive side of the football for 4 years.
Yes.
He said he's got surprising power for his size. He's got excellent quickness and a good get off, and he has some flexibility in coverage. You'll see him listed as a linebacker all over. That just ends up being kind of a defense terminology thing. But I thought it was interesting, one, as I read when Seth, has at least a chance to edit himself in the Chief of the North newsletter, that he's not going to be the guy you went out there on 1st and 2nd down, that he is not going to be your edge setter necessarily. But for a guy in Spags' defense, the quote, surprising power for his size does feel like maybe the bare minimum in that specific department. Like, as the Chiefs, and unfortunately we haven't really seen it. We haven't seen any evolution here this year. BJ Thompson was like the huge outlier in terms of like, just get skin and bones, and we're gonna figure out if we can make him into an NFL defensive end over the course of his progress.
Hey Josh, did you know he played basketball?
Yeah, so that kind of thing comes up where it's like,
So
I like to see the sort of the diversity in that group a little bit. Uche is a different type of player, and I feel like they could weaponize him in some interesting ways.
right, and I know the question was asked by Nate Dogg. Nate, how is BJ Thompson? Hey man, he's doing fabulous. It's a medical miracle. Every time I see him, it brings me joy. In the locker room during the week of practice. Who the hell knows when he will be technically cleared for football activity? Like Andy Reid made it seem like it might be November, December, but again, he's got to go through a lot more medical clearance than like obviously a guy coming off an ACL injury like Charles Omenihu. So, in my mind, whether this is fair to him or not, and I guess these moves kind of highlight that to some degree, but like from all intents and purposes in my mind, I want to see BJ Thompson back on the football field in April. The same, it's not the same thing, obviously, but like it took DeMar Hamlin quite a bit to get back to being a legitimate football player again. And it's much better to be cautious and to wait than to try to speed somebody up who had a seizure and then went into cardiac arrest and almost died. And his football season kind of got warped in that moment. That was in June. So he has had no training camp. He has not practiced one bit since the mandatory mini camp, which is when he had the seizure. And as much as I enjoy seeing him and chatting with him for a little bit, I don't know how much of a factor he'll play, or if he'll even be someone who can like work some things out on the practice squad, for the latter half of the season. Whereas it just might be easier to just think about him for 2025 with a full off season.
I can't think of a world in which rushing him back makes any sense.
Yes.
Especially when you do have you have rotational depth down the depth chart. I will mention that when we talk about acquisitions at that position, trying to bolster the group a little bit, Cam Thomas in the 3 games without Mike Dana has played 3 defensive snaps, 3 defensive snaps, and 0 defensive snaps. That was a 7th round pick traded there. So there's no guarantee this will work. I think Cam Thomas is the new Neil Farrell, perhaps, and I don't feel great about where he's at in the rotation, but they have bodies certainly that would allow BJ Thompson to just stay over there, come back next year, and make it happen. Seth, I'll give you the talking stick with all of the timidity of handing the talking stick to a 15-year-old boy at a wedding. But what did you see when you turned on the Joshua Uche film?
Fellas, within the confines of a loving marriage, one might offer... Okay,
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees.
All right. So I knew nothing.
Again.
I can't. I don't have any more in me. I didn't know anything about Joshua Uche, which, including how to pronounce his name, when the Chiefs traded for him. Didn't know a thing. And when you're looking at me like that, it makes me so nervous.
No,
I didn't know anything
earlier. It's all right. Keep going.
I'm gonna have to turn off the comments here from the wonderful people. Anyway,
Is that any better?
Oh, no, I mean, that's just as bad. Everyone stop distracting me. You know I can't do this. We're all trying to find the guy that did this, Josh.
The guy who did this.
We're all looking. Josh, I'm going to dedicate my life to finding the guy who did this. If you would just
I wish you dedicate your life to killing the guy who did this.
Wow. I can't even pretend to be offended.
Prosecuting. All right, fine.
Yeah.
Prosecute. Just incarcerate the man who did this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Nope, that makes sense. So I kind of like it when things like this happen, when the Chiefs grab a player that I don't really know anything about, because it allows me to come in with kind of a fresh set of eyes where I don't really, again, I've got no frame of reference. He was a 2nd round pick, I believe. And what's interesting to me, when you look at like his stat line for his entire career, he's been a situational pass rusher basically his entire career. And you've got kind of the stats that look like that, 2-3 sacks a season, 6-7 quarterback hits a season, a few pressures. And then in 2022, he had like 11.5 sacks and like 14 quarterback hits. And you're like, well, that's weird. Like it's just not what you'd expect to see. And so I saw enough people. I have no idea what you guys are doing, and I'm so nervous. I had enough people that I really respect, which doesn't include the two of you, that were saying nice things about him on the artist formerly known as Twitter. That made me just think, well, that's interesting, at least. And thanks to NFL Pro, we talked about this with the DeAndre Hopkins trade. You can now look at plays. You can just go take a look at. You can look at every single pass rush snap by Uche. I'm already doing that throughout the course of the season. It's hard. Uche is a tough one. Uche. All right, I'm in. I got it. Uche. So if you were to ask me, and this is the hot take that I'll start with that kind of gets us there, I think.
Yeah.
If you were to ask,
do you want the folder from 2021 and give it to you?
No. Just based on 2024's film, if you were to say, "Hey Seth, it's 3rd and 10, obvious passing down, who's more likely to win one-on-one? Joshua Uche or George Karlaftis?" I'd say Uche after watching this film. I think pure pass rusher wise, and we'll see. You never know how people will go from
Did
one
you want a
system
bigger
to the
reaction
next.
to that? It felt like after the fact you wanted a bigger. You want to deliver that line again? Said
No,
it was 3rd and 10, passing situation, game on the line. Who's more likely to win? Joshua Uche or George Karlaftis? Who would you say?
I'd have to say Joshua Uche. Josh has been cast aside and floored by my football analysis. He is on the ground. He's out. He's unconscious. He's legs in the air. And Nate is showing a Taylor Swift Eras Tour poster. I don't know. I don't get that reference.
Over George Karlaftis?
Okay. So Josh is gone again. So here's the deal. I've lost both my co-hosts, so we're working on the for the listeners right now. You know, Nate, I think
we're all trying to find the guy who did this.
We're all trying to find the guy that did this. The thing with Uche's film, as a pure pass rusher, he wins one-on-one, including in 2024, more frequently than Karlaftis. Now, if you were to ask me who the better player is, it's George Karlaftis. He's a better player than Uche. Way better against the run. Uche does not play the run well, or even a little bit well. It's not great. But pure pass rush situations, Uche, I charted every single one of his pass rushes. That's available on the Chief North newsletter, where I occasionally censor myself.
How much is it?
It's only $12 a year if you subscribe. You've seen.
How many Taylor Swift tickets can you get with that?
It's like 1/100th of one. And for what it's worth, George Karlaftis is above average defensive end. I really like him. Really glad he's a Chief. Hope they keep him here for a long, long time. In terms of, and we've talked about this for a long time, he's a great fit for Spag's system. He rushes the way Spags likes. He's a pure power guy. He is able to crush the pocket. But we've talked about this. The thing that's kept him from going from guy to a dude with everything else that he does well is he doesn't win one-on-one with a lot of consistency. That's just not something he does in obvious pass rushing downs. And I think you saw that. He's been a little better the last couple of weeks. But you could see that against the Raiders. Nate, dang it. He's still waving the Taylor Swift Eras Tour cover. You saw that the last couple of weeks. And against the Raiders, there were some obvious 3rd and long passing downs where they rushed 4, and Jones was double teamed, and no one got pressure. And that happens too often for the Chiefs defense. It's one of the very few weaknesses they have. And by weakness, they're still good there. Like the Chiefs defense is awesome. But this is one area where they're not high level. They're fine, but not high level. They were high level with Amenahu last year. And Uche, I charted him as winning wins, losses, neutrals. I charted him as winning a little over 14% of his pure pass rush snaps. That's higher than George by my charting. I know PFF and ESPN, Next Gen, they've got their own charting for that stuff. They actually have him charted as higher than that. It would not surprise me if on obvious passing downs you saw Uche out there a fair amount. Maybe not this next week, but moving forward.
Right.
Because he's, like, not this next week, but he is. I think he might be a better pure pass rusher than George. And if he is, that's just great for the Chiefs. And here's the thing. He stinks against the run. Not good. And that might be one reason he's available for penny on the dollar. But you know what George and Mike Dana and FAU are good at? Defending the run. They don't need a first and second down defensive end. They need a speed rusher, and that's how he largely wins. Josh, get off the floor.
We need juice. We need more dogs.
We need juice. And he is a guy who can win quickly around the edge, who actually has, he has a good first step. He's got good athleticism. He's got a good rip move. He's actually built a pass rush plan around that rip move. He's got the ability to corner. He's got a little bend. He's not an elite pass rusher because he lacks enough of a power element to his game. Like, he can't just convert speed to power and run through a guy like a Nick Bosa or a TJ Watt. So that keeps him from being elite. But he's a good pass rusher. And that ability, that's a big deal. And George Carr, I think he can win one-on-one more than George. And I think they complement one another because Karlaftis is a guy, he crushes the pocket, and they need a guy who comes around. And then with Chris Jones coming in, I think it might be bigger than the sum of the parts. And so that's where I really checked out. He's got a good series of moves that he's built around that rip and the ability to corner. He'll do a little bit of inside out stuff, outside in stuff. I thought his film was solid. I mean, he's a good pass rusher.
Okay. There's just one. I think there's one sad part about all this.
Mm-hmm.
I think unless it's a clear rushing down multiple tight end formation, I just think it means that we're probably not going to see Leo Chenal as much as a defensive end as we would have maybe liked to see.
Sure.
So he goes back to being more of a 3-tech rover, blitzer, spire, and obviously off-ball linebacker. But it was quite shocking that Steve Spagnuolo said, let's have George Karlaftis and Leo Chenal be our starting defensive ends against the Las Vegas Raiders. And I just don't know how much that's going to happen moving forward. Now,
you still might see it on first and second downs.
Yeah, but it has to be. But I think it has to be like multiple tight ends, kind of what you see at the goal line, more so than like start of the game type stuff, where we just want to throw this out there because we can do it, because we can just mess with you. Yeah, and again, obviously.
Sorry, guys, I nodded off a little bit. Do you talk about the current Chiefs defense at all and how good they've been and what they showed against the Raiders?
They've been great. They've been great. I have to leave.
That was your topic. Don't act like I just force-fed that to you.
Sadly,
we asked what to talk about, and you're like, the Chiefs defense is cooking. You're like, all right, we'll put it on the rundown. And I was like, Nate,
put it on the rundown.
Right? Nate's like, yeah, bleep you.
BJ's not going to understand why Josh puts in his 2-week notice in a text after the show. He's going to be like, wait, what? Like, why? I don't understand.
It won't be 2 weeks when it's time. It will be. You have just listened to my final edition of. That's how it's going to be.
Who got out faster, Deontay Johnson this week or Josh Brisco? So this is the last.
I mean, one of us is getting paid millions of dollars. One of us doesn't get hit by 300-pound absolute mutants. So pros and cons.
Yeah, I must leave this place in the next 3 minutes because someone has to A, pick their child up, and B, take him to Allen Fieldhouse for the first time. Now look. I told you all before. At home, he's a lot comfortable. He knows all the zones. He knows the back doors. He knows how to set up coverage to then leak out of the back. As I told y'all a couple weeks ago, after the Chiefs defeated the New Orleans Saints, Travis Kelce had his best route not on the field. It was evading every reporter, including me. I should have been the backside safety. I should have seen that he was going to go through the back door. Now, on Sunday. Considering that was his best game statistically of the season, considering he scored a touchdown on National Tight Ends Day, considering he's very good friends with DeAndre Hopkins, it was told to me that I need to go get Travis Kelce. Okay. Now, on one end,
Tucker, you can go ahead and skip all the way down to final
skip
thoughts.
all the way down.
We'll go ahead and call it.
Yep, skip it all the way down.
This is the final thought, I believe.
So on one end, you have the humanity of the sport, and on one end, you have the shits and giggles that is my job. Travis Kelce locker is right next to Jody Fortson's locker. Unfortunately, Jody Fortson, had a significant knee injury on the onside kick. It's the reason why he didn't recover the onside kick the way he normally would or should have. And Travis Kelce, being an honorable teammate, spent several minutes consoling Jody Fortson, who was emotional, who was in tears. We made eye contact, and it's one of those first times where I want to break the fourth wall, because as a human being, you just want to like project some form of like condolences and sympathy, but that's not my job. And I need to give plenty of distance, even though he can see that I'm observing this. Obviously Jody Fortson's been a part of this podcast in either iteration, for as long as we can keep this going. And so Tom Melvin, you never see this. Tom Melvin comes out of the coach's locker room into the players' locker room, spends several minutes with Jody Fortson, hugs him. Jody Fortson's going to have to leave the locker room on crutches. And my job is to play man-to-man defense against Travis Kelce to get his thoughts from the game.
Yeah.
This is why the job is hard, but this is also why the job's important, because I do want to share the humanity of how tough this sport is, considering how important Jody Fortson has been to this podcast from literally day one. His season ended on Sunday, and in a lot of ways, Travis Kelce's season began on Sunday. And the dynamics and the juxtaposition of it is utterly compelling. It's heartbreaking on one end, but the season's continuing, moving forward. And again, the mothership called a zero coverage. I got to get him. I got to get his comments. And so I think Travis understood the respect that I was trying to give both him, Tom Melvin, Jody Fortson. Andy Reid comes down, rubs him, obviously does a, shoulder, tries to, rub his shoulders, tries to get him to like relieve some of the tension, some of the stress, obviously says some encouraging words, and you can't move. You don't, I think as fans, we want to be numb to it, but then there's part of it where it's just like, you just have to endure what the sport cost. And then Travis agrees, which made flying to Las Vegas worth it. And I see that, and I mean, this is a matter of seconds, kids. As he agrees, as he finishes, as he puts the finishing touches on his outfit, I now know I got to play man coverage, but I also got to give him some cushion because of what happened last year in Minnesota. So as he's reaching for the duffel bag, I take a couple steps back. 3 sprays of cologne.
Wow.
3, not 4. 3. And you know what? I was aware enough to stay back so that I wouldn't be a part of the sprays. I just let him have his space. This was not like Minnesota where it was 4 sprays, and I should have just went immediately to the club instead of writing my story.
Maybe he's usually a 3 spray guy and he just gave you an extra.
Maybe he did. Who knows?
3 for me, 1 for Nate,
So we walk over and we talk about Jody, which is not on the record. And again, just the things that you don't always think about from teammate to teammate. And then I'm supposed to ask him about his brand new teammate in DeAndre Hopkins. And so these quotes are only in The Athletic. You should read it if you haven't already. And that as he's trying to inspire Jody Fortson about the next challenge and adversity in his career, i.e. life, he's also telling me how much he was inspired by DeAndre Hopkins and how his season is essentially anew. And now the trade's worth it. This is a factor of the trade that you cannot anticipate or envision. And we're talking about two things happening in a very, like, not sliding doors manner, but just, you know, one story is sort of a pause or an end note, and then, or a footnote in some manners, which is horrible. But then obviously this next chapter is beginning, and he sort of explains that, yeah, the reason I had the best game of the season is because DeAndre Hopkins is right there. And what he did for me, which is so unusual because it's Travis Kelce who's doing it for his teammates, for the other guys. And so I just wanted to share that story. I got to take my kid to Allen Fieldhouse, which will officially make him a Jayhawk, which, yeah. Maybe, you know, maybe things, you know, times are changing, kids. But yeah, you know, I said, get out of here. And he said, all right now. And that was it. And I did my job. I covered him like white on rice.
Like
Didn't let him get out of here.
Travis Kelce.
Yep. Hey, coach. I won that rep.
And now, Tucker, go ahead and just cut Seth's mic. Just no more mistakes. No more incidents today, okay?
Now, don't put me in another one-on-one.